Well, Jason, did you hear? Hear what? The events from this past weekend. You talking about the car show? No, Lake Flannanockle. No, what happened, Tim? Well, breaking news from Lake Flannanockle. The pests are out there. A group of tiny campers from the Eagles group were out camping that way. Someone must have left their caught fish on the bank, and apparently hundreds and hundreds of bats were around them, sucking the blood off the aquatic fish. Now, in Nebraska, there is one type of bat, the vampire bat, that is known to suck blood from animals, and those are the bats from the Henry Dorley Zoo. So I'm hearing the zoo is having escape bats roam the city of Omaha. That's what I'm thinking. These bats do remain a mystery. Apparently, a bunch of scared screaming kids is enough to run these animals off. But our experts at Bird Exterminators, your place for pests removal, are confident that these bats must be escaped vampire bats. And with us today is Mr. Robert himself. Yes, Tim and Jason. It looks like we have quite an issue on our hands with these pests. But don't worry. I am here to help and serve the people of this city. Just give us a call at 402-898-1021 or look on our website, Bird Exterminators, to help us get the pest out of your lives. You know, they have an ad on Boomer's radio every hour. Soon they'll have the owner of the dog kennel place off State Street. The Mike and Barry's ice cream on, I told Dip. Yeah, but the story they told is legit. At least the campers finding the bats eating the fish. Actually, a bigger thing than they made it seem. The zoo's under pressure since it's the third animal this year to escape from there. Like vampire bats, native to South America, couple thousand miles away. But here's the thing. Unlike the other two, the zoo is saying these bats didn't come from their zoo. Dip replied to me. That would mean that these didn't come from any regular place, I said back. I think you know where I'm heading toward this. You remember a while ago we looked up the Ohika tribe from Oregon. They had a bunch of spirit animals, and now with this local Omaha tribe, they have animals as well. Well, one of these animals is a bat. Actually, bats are common spirit animals for all native tribes. They represent rebirth and guardianship, and of course, nighttime. Dip replied. You really studied a lot on this. I said back to him. There's a parallel universe, and you, brother, has powers. I am doing everything in my power to know everything about it. Dip replied. Well, what's the move then? I asked Dip. Lake Flannanockle is about 10 to 15 minutes away with a semi-large wooded area. I say we hike through those trails there and see if any bats pop up. Dip replied to me. It's nearly 2 p.m. No bats would be out. I said back to him. Attention to detail. Nick, those campers found the fish covered in bats at 5 p.m. on a day that was 90 degrees. They aren't regular bats, Dip replied to me, leaving toward the lake. We arrived in 12 minutes, Dip groaning in the traffic on the way there, but overall being happy with the progress. We started walking through the trails, another hot day keeping the park empty from anyone that would see us out wandering around. The forest was pretty bare, with few rabbits and squirrels around the area. We then saw a fox across the trail, running from the brush and out to something, the brown coat and body once belonging to a deer laying on the ground. The fox turned around, wondering if we would leave it alone before it could nip at the dead corpse that was absent of any smell, leading to be a fresh kill. Dip stepped forward, an instant reaction from the fox to scatter away. Dip then reached the body of the doe, myself following and seeing the 2 precision cuts straight across its body, blood soaked in the surrounding area. A bat's not doing this. It looks like someone cut this with a knife, then took something out, Dip replied. But if it was human, why 2 distinct slashes? Why not one large one? I asked him. Dip shook his head. Another mystery, he said, now circling the body. We spent another couple of hours exploring, leaving the deer body where it was at, the foxes feasting on it as soon as we left. I then left to pick up Will and Hannah, who, contrast from me, had an uneventful day working at the grocery store. Hannah stayed late that night, our group around the table playing cards while Dip was 5 feet away stirring some pasta in a pot. I had just played my ace down on the table, then Nick playing a 10. "I take it all," I said, swiping my hand over the table and pushing the played cards toward me. "Dinner should be ready soon," Dip mentioned, getting in a quick comment as Hannah pushed out 5 new cards for the start of the next round. "So, Dip, what were you and Nick up to today?" Hannah asked. Dip looked back, maybe a bit surprised that Hannah asked him that instead of me, unaware that an hour ago I gave a bland answer. Nothing being my original response to the question. "Not much I can think of. Small-town case of someone stealing mail out of a mailbox. Might be a tiny thing, but is a felony crime," Dip replied. Hannah nodded, then being interrupted by tiny squeaks outside. "What is that?" she asked, as the squeaks multiplied one after another. The room inside fell quiet, ourselves hearing the sounds outside. Faint pops that mixed between a dog squeal and a popcorn kernel popping within the bag, one after another with the flaps of a bird's wings. "Those sounds like bats, right? We had a lot of those back home," Will said. "Yeah, I bet Oregon would have many bats," Hannah said to Will. "Yeah," Will said awkwardly, myself now sweating at what this could mean. I then felt my tongue go down my throat, a booming sound coming from above as something plopped down on the metal roof of the trailer. It swayed back and forth, myself totally focused, barely noticing Hannah asking, "What the fuck was that?" Dip went over to his bed, pulling out the drawer underneath and gripping a pistol in his hand. I went to the back room, grabbing my own. Hannah and Will both ducked down under the kitchen table, every single eyeball staring right above my head on the roof. A pound then came, as if a bowling ball fell from a small height onto the metal. Then another, and another. "Something is walking up there." "What is it, Dip?" Will yelled out while under the table. "I don't know, just stay calm," was Dip's response. How the hell are they supposed to stay calm, Dip? I'm not even calm, I asked myself. 5 more bowling balls struck the roof as the creature seemed to have crossed the trailer, now seemingly sitting above Dip's head. Dip was looking up at the ceiling, then shook as the front suspension was risen, a giant weight coming off the front tires. It shook for another moment before it again went quiet. No bowling balls, no squealing dogs and popping popcorn. Dip now opened the door, myself following and watching as he slowly walked outside. I went in front of the trailer, scouting the air for any flying pests, then crawling up a ladder to get on the roof that was set in the front. Up there I could see the imprints the thing, creature, giant something had left. The prints were pretty small, my crunched-up fist being about the size of the impressions, but still, you could see the damage the thing had done. Dip now got a good stare at the prints as well, mentioning, "That thing was heavy to do this. I've seen these roofs have tree limbs fall on them before and do less damage." I nodded my head. "Means we have to find what did this," I replied. We went back inside, Hannah giving me a hug as she trembled, her whole body shaking. "What are all these things?" she asked me. "I can't explain it," I replied to her. "I'm scared." She said back, myself putting my head into her shoulder, disappointed I couldn't tell her the truth. We slept on the twin mattress together, with Will sleeping out on the kitchen bench and Dip sleeping in his own bed. We awoke early the next morning, Hannah and Will going to the supermarket early for their shift. "To the woods, find out what paid us a visit last night," Dip told me as they left. The morning woods was damp and humid, making the entire walk through miserable as it felt like a walk through a dense jungle. I also could feel my muscle in my legs start to tear away as the endless walking through the woods was tiresome. Minutes started to feel like hours as we scourged the forested carpet. Even with my pain, I kept up with Dip, his clothes drenched and wrinkled from the sweat that had accumulated upon them. "What's that sound?" Dip then asked me, stopping in the middle of the familiar woods, not a clear sign of what he could be referring to. "Dip, I didn't hear anything." "Are you feeling okay?" I asked him, knowing his imagination could be getting the better of him. The same way I looked at a bug earlier believing it to be a fresh fruit slice. The chitter? It's the sounds of bats. He went, sure of what he had heard. I focused in on my ears, blurring out the headache I had and heard my surrounding. He was right, there's light chirps much like we had heard last night. I followed Dip, who had a much better idea of the sound and where it came from, brushing himself against a bush as he crept to the sound. There I could see where it came from. A giant fuzzy ball with two poles clinched against a tree branch from where it hung with hundreds of individual chirping sounds coming from it. "What is that?" I asked Dip, watching as he pulled out his gun. He shot 3 rounds at the object fast, it now dropping and creating an indent on the ground below. We then walked over to it, the object moving slightly up and down, Dip firing again into it, then no more movement. I could still hear the chirping from the object, faster and more concerned, scared. Dip flipped the object over, the head of the giant bat looking into me, almost asking why my partner had killed it. On its stomach were nearly 100 small bats clinched to their mother. Dip then raised his foot, stomping on the tiny bats, defenseless to his attack. "What are you doing?" I exclaimed to him. "These grow into that." Dip replied, pointing to a baby, then right after to its mother. "Unless you want to deal with a whole bunch of pissed-off giant bats in 5 months, I expect you start stomping these guys out like a fire." He finished, stomping another 2 groups. I stood back for a second, looking at the deflated bodies of previously squashed baby bats. I knew it was the right thing to do. I couldn't let these things grow to be its parent. It's not natural to this world. I started to join in, squashing until all squeaks were silenced. I just got off the phone with Nick. He says him and Dip are still looking for that thing from yesterday. They might be home late. Hannah said to Will as they ate lunch together. "That works for me. We can watch Rocket Man," Will replied to her. "I don't get how you like that show. All they do is fight, complain, and fight again." Hannah jabbed at him. "No, there's more to it. Sometimes Gracie has sex scenes and they show, well, it." Will replied. Hannah's only response was rolling her eyes, waiting for their lunch to be over. They arrived at the trailer later that night, Hannah cooking a small meal for herself and Will, while Will worked on the chores Dip had given him in case they wouldn't be back. Will was cleaning the room where himself and Nick slept as he heard Hannah call out, "Can you take out the trash? I need to drain and throw these scraps away, but it's full." Will came out of the room, walking over to the trash can and picking it up, now walking outside, reminding himself that he had to do it anyway for Dip. He walked down the street to the dumpster. When about 20 feet away from the house, he got pushed to the ground. He now laid on the ground, twisting to see the attacker behind him. His eyes lit up when he saw the ginormous bird spread its wing above his body. Will now let out a cry and rose his legs, striking it forward and hitting the bird in its small rodent-like body. The creature backed up, Will making some space as the creature walked toward him. Then the creature stopped, turning its head 180 degrees and seeing Hannah, who stood in front of the trailer with a second can of pasta sauce to throw at the creature. The creature shriveled its head up and shrieked, a chill going through Hannah's body upon glancing at such a sight. She stood frozen as the creature flapped its wing, then diving at Hannah, who was defenseless. Then a giant light shot through the air, striking the creature mid-air and blasting it away, landing hard on the ground against the neighbor's trailer. Hannah looked straight, seeing Will's hand extended, the light orb resorbing itself into his hand as if it was going to reload. "What the fuck?" Hannah said out loud. "Get inside," Will said, rushing toward the trailer, Hannah closing the door behind them as Will collapsed on Will's bed. Hannah gasping, seeing the giant slash on Will's back. Pick up," she then said as she paced back and forth, saying, "Nick, the bat thing, it's here," as he answered the phone. The trailer then moved off its foundation, the giant metal frame creaking as something had hit it, something big. A second later, the metal was struck again, this time from the roof, creating a sound as if Hannah and Will were stuck in a drum. "We are coming," I said on the other line, giving Dip the command. "We have to go now. The bat is back home." We ran through the woods, getting on the trail and sprinting the mile back to our car. Dip spun out of the parking lot fast, enough to get some stares from others using the park. We started to speed down the road, then a figure pulling out in front of us. It gave me a flashback, the human-like figure standing unafraid of the speeding car coming towards itself. "Alos?" I said, Dip replying, "Shit, shit, shit," as the car started to slow down. I now got a better look at the figure, a tall, lanky person dressed in a red suit with red skin, standing 50 feet in front of us. Dip got out of the car, immediately pleading as if his life depended on it. "Please let us get by. We have people in danger." The figure rose its hand, a fire now emerging and shooting a small, fiery snowball at Dip, sending him back upon the road. "It's time to surrender to me, Agon. Or should I call you Will?" I froze in place, watching as the figure approached, its skull lighting up, illuminating more and more of its body until it gave the effect that it stood under a streetlight. I looked at the figure. Its details. It didn't have skin was my first thought. In fact, it didn't look like it had any organic features. Each part of this humanoid that made it human, its eyes, nose shape, the curve of its lips were gone, replaced by what terrified me. Bone. Straight bone, its eyes sockets sunken in, its mouth only a little line with teeth. The nose punctured into itself. The worst thing was that the bones weren't white, but burned, blacked, and charred. A gunshot took me out of the trance. Myself seeing Dip fire into the figure, its reaction was null to the attack. It raised its hand again, then shooting a fireball at Dip, knocking him upon the ground again. "Get up and move out of the car or your legs will be burned and I will carry you away," the figure said as it stood outside the car. I obeyed, opening the door and exiting, the cold hand of the figure grasping on my neck as if it was a monkey bar it was hanging off of. "Please," I mumbled, the figure ignoring as a portal that reminded me of the one Will had made opened in front. The figure pushed me forward, myself having no choice to oblige and walk through, only to be followed by my worst nightmare. The bat creature now broke the window of the trailer, poking its head through as it shrieked at Hannah and Will, who grouped together in the corner holding each other. "Leave us alone," Will yelled at it, seeing the blood cover the bat's short gray and black fur from the glass cuts. "We have to leave this thing. It's going to break through and we are sitting duck here," Hannah said. "Agreed," Will replied, raising his hands and shooting an orb of energy into the bat, knocking it back. "Go, go," Hannah said as she rushed out the door, looking at the bat as it laid on its back in a daze. Will looked over at it too, thinking about trying to get the final blow as Hannah honked the horn, yelling and pleading with Will to enter the car. He compelled to her request, getting in as they drove out the trailer park. "What now?" Will asked Hannah. "They said they were at park. Let's go find them," she said. They made their way on the highway, now seeing Dip's car off to the side. They pulled off to the other lane, parking beside the car and getting out. "He took Nick," Dip told them as they came to him. "Who?" Will asked, a panic setting over him. Dip tried to speak but was too tired, now sitting on the hood of the car. "Who?" Will shouted, pounding his fist on the car and waking Dip up. "I'm sorry," Dip said then, being interrupted by a screech. In the light of the moon, they could see the animal, its wingspan nearly 12 feet long, making it appear as a small plane fly through the sky. The bat circled the group of three, Dip barely having the strength to rotate his head to keep an eye on it. Then the bat attacked, diving in as if it was a hawk and they were field mice. Hannah screamed. Dip tried reaching for his gun, and Will put out his hand. Another bright streak overtook the light the moon could produce, a spear-like object emerging and shooting toward the bat, cutting in through the top of its head and slicing the animal in two. The parts came to the left and right of the car, the wings flapping erratically, like the last moves a chicken makes after its head's cut off. Then it stopped. The bat was dead, and Will screamed out, in anger, in frustration, in rage. The scream filled the air, only stopping when Will looked over, seeing a girl now frightened and terrified of him, as if she was 10 years old. Will stood back. "I'm sorry, Hannah," he said to her. Hannah couldn't say a word, her breaths deep and thoughtful as she tried to calm herself down. Will now heard from the car. He looked over, Dip staring back at him. "I know where they went," Dip said to him. "Where?" Will said. "We need a portal." Dip let out, his eyes now rolling back into his head as he collapsed on the ground, passing out.